Alright, by now you've learned a lot in Scratch, and we're going to get a little deeper into things. We're going to create our first game today. But to do this, first I want to introduce the coordinate grid to students. Now some of you already understand this, I understand. You've had it in math, the basics of this. You'll get a lot more into this in middle school. But for programming, we will need to identify that we use a grid to move things around the screen sometimes, and especially when we're designing a screen. And I get more advanced into programming, you'll be using this a lot more. Now our grid has numbers that go a lot higher, but this gives you a good example of how a grid works. The exact middle of a screen has an x coordinates and y coordinates. It's 0, 0. But as you get farther out on the x, though you're still 0, I'm sorry, on the y, not on the x, so you're still 0 here, but your x will increase. Same here, well, on this line, your 0 stays the same for your x. This line doesn't increase, but this one will. So we can see the same thing in our grid, and the opposite way is obviously negative. So over here would be negative 10, negative 6. Over here would be positive 10, positive 7. And so each quadrant, each fourth of this has different values, and every specific, the important thing to remember is that every specific point on this grid has a specific address. So every address, you can tell just by the two numbers where on the grid it is. I know it's a bit confusing if you haven't had it before. You'll get a lot more practice about this in math. But what it means is if you look at this on our Scratch screen where we have an x value and a y value, it corresponds with wherever the cursor is. So right now I'm going to point at the cat's nose, and you'll see the value of where that cat's nose is at 14 on the x and 15 on the y. So that's pretty close to the middle of the page. If we just go down a little bit more, I'll try to get to the exact middle. Oh, it's really close. Right there. So right on this part of his mouth is the exact middle of the screen. It's 0, 0. But if I go up here, it's negative 18, 140. If I go over here, it's negative 193, negative 131. So the important thing to remember, and we have a go to, where is it? The important thing to remember is if you want to put anything on this specific part of the screen, you just need to know its address. And we'll be using that today while we make our game, because we'll have to place things at certain places on the screen. So for our game today, let's start off. We're going to create a game a chasing game. It's a pretty simple one to start with, where we have a dragon chasing a cat. So the first thing we have to be able to do is to move our cat around. So to do that, see, I'm in my cat sprite, and you know, I don't like the name of that sprite. So I am going to change his name to Cat. This is going to be very important. The more that we use these, because if you have 50 sprites in a game, or we really call them objects, but if you're naming all these sprites, you need to know what specific one you're talking about. You can't leave them as sprite 1, sprite 2, sprite 3, sprite 4, sprite 5, because it will get really confusing about which sprite you're actually talking about. So it's good practice to always name your sprites. And while I'm here, I might as well name my program too. We'll call this Escape the Dragon. So now I have a name for my game instead of Untitled. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a forever block. See, I'm in the cat. So forever he's going to do this. I need to move him around. So I'm going to have him point towards, so I can decide what he's going to point towards. Right now I just have the mouse pointer because I have no other objects. So now when I run it, oops, I forgot to put in my start event. So now when I run it, he should follow my mouse wherever he goes. See how he points towards my mouse? Okay, so that's the first step. He points towards my mouse. Second step, now I have to have him actually move towards the mouse, because he has to follow this in order to escape the dragon. So he's not only going to point towards it, but he's going to move 10 steps towards it. So see, now he is moving at a pretty quick pace. You could speed him up or slow him down. I'll stop the program for a second. If I made this, say, 5 steps, and I ran it, see, he goes much slower, much slower. So you can speed him up or slow him down depending on how you want your game to play. We'll leave him at 10 for now, because I need to probably be pretty quick to get away from this dragon. Second, we have to put in a background, because I really don't like the white background. So I'm going to go into my stage and pick a new backdrop. Let's going to pick one from the file. It's much easier to pick one that's pre-made, but you can always download your own or even draw your own, especially if you have a good graphics program. It's tough to do it by hand. I think I want to put him in space. So let's get a good space one in here. Oh, I like that one. So I'm going to use this. He's flying around in space. It makes more sense, right? He's floating through space. Okay. So now I have a space backdrop. See, next we need to add our dragon. So let's get a new sprite. And she's probably under fantasy. Ooh, that's a good dragon. Not sure we have that many either. So let's use him as the dragon. I think we're going to shrink him just a little bit. Oops, that's gross. Because I don't want to make him too big. Okay. So now I have my cat and my dragon doesn't do anything. But I want to have him, now he's going to do something when we start. So we're in our dragon. See, it's my cat script. Now I'm going to my dragon script. When he begins, I want him to start in a specific place. So I'm going to say for him to go to, and I want him to start in this far down corner here. So I'm going to say, let's say negative 200. Let's try negative 200, negative 140. So negative 200, negative 140. And that should put him down here in the bottom left-hand corner. Let's try it. Yep, there he starts in the bottom left-hand corner. So that's a good one. All right. And what we'll see when we have the dragon open, that he has different costumes. So he has a costume that he is not fire breathing and one that he is fire breathing. So we want to make sure, no matter where it ended, that he has the right costume. So we are going to switch the costume to Dragon A. So even if it ended and you restart it, we want it to go back to Dragon A without the fire, because he's not going to have fire until something happens. Now he's going to also have a forever block, because he's always going to be wanting to get something. If you can imagine, he wants to get to that cat and burn him up, I guess. He's hungry dragon. They only like burn things. So he's forever he's going to, same thing, he's going to point towards something, but the thing he is going to point towards is the cat, because that's what he's trying to get. And we know he has to move, but I don't want him to move 10 steps a second. I'm going to want him to move like, let's say 4, because I don't want him to go as fast as my cat. If he goes as fast as my cat, it will be pretty easy to catch my cat on this little screen, right? So now when we do it, you see he chases the cat, and he's still eventually going to get him, because there's only so much space in this, and this cat's so big, I could shrink him down a little bit. Maybe you want to do that when you have your game. But you see how he chases the cat constantly now. You could also slow down the dragon and speed up the cat too. So we also have to put another thing in here, probably another start event, because we want to put a separate event in here. So you have one to move him, but now we need to put an ending event. So what happens when the dragon reaches the cat? That's a new event, right? So let's have him wait until something happens. And the thing that is going to happen is he is going to be touching. So as soon as the dragon is touching the cat, right? As soon as he touches the cat, something has to happen. He has to switch his costume back to fire breathing, right? That's when he's going to change to the fire breathing dragon. When he gets to the cat, now he can breathe the fire. And also, let's stop him. Stop all, actually, because at that point, everything should stop. It's kind of the end of the game when the dragon catches the cat. So now, the dragon should chase the cat. Let's give it a try. He should change to fire breathing when he catches him. Oh, escape, escape, escape. Oh, fire breathing. He breathes his fire on the cat, and the game stops. And that's the end of the game. So that's not enough, though, right, for a game. We have to have some kind of score or something to keep track of how well we did. So I'm going to make a new variable. And to do this, remember, we have to, remember, hopefully everybody remembers what a variable is, because we went over that before, but it's a value that can change. So like score is a very popular one. It can change. Your score could be 1 or 100. Time is another one. It could be 1 or 100 or 50 or anything in between. Other things can be variables too, like how much homework did you get done? That's a variable. It could be none. It could be some. It could be all of it. Or how much pizza did the person eat? It could be 1 piece, 2 piece, 3 pieces. Those are all variables. We usually have a letter that stands for those variables, or in computer programming, a name that stands for those variables. But we need to have one variable that keeps track of that number for our score. And to do this, we're not going to have points that accrue. In ours, we're going to have, we'll call it a time variable. You see under data, I can make my new variable. And when I make it, I can say make it for all sprites, because it's not really affecting just one. It's going to be for my whole game. But sometimes you'll have a variable that only applies to the cat. Like what if you want to keep a different score for the dragon and the cat, or in another kind of game? You might have a variable that only applies to the cat and one that only applies to the dragon. So maybe they have just different score variables. So for today we'll have for all sprites. And now when I create it, you see the whole nother set of blocks that are created for me. So we are going to, and it really doesn't matter where I put this. I could put it in either sprite in this case, but it's just as good habit. I'm going to put the things that affect everything into my first sprite, so I always know where to look. So we're going to do another thing. When it starts, we are going to go back into my data, and I'm going to set the time to 0, right? So when the game starts, the time is 0. Now we have to put another repeat block in forever. Wait 1 second, and what's going to happen after 1 second? Of course, the time is going to change, right? The time is going to change by 1, because the computer doesn't really know what the time variable is, but now I'm telling it what to do. Every second, increase the time by 1. So now, do you see already in the top left corner, the variable time has shown up. So now, when I run it, I'm getting away from a dragon. I'm getting away. Oh, he got me. I lasted 3 seconds, so you can see that. Let's see if I can do better this time. Try and evade him. 2 seconds. It's even worse. So I'm not doing too well. We probably need to slow down the dragon or speed up the cat, or give him something to dodge or hide in to make this game a little bit better. But so you can make it easier or harder. But you get the idea of how we can make our first game. We could also create something that the cat is going to try and collect. I could show you how to do that, but I think you could figure that out. Just create a new sprite and put other variables in, maybe something he chases. Like you could have him chasing some kind of food that the cat wants to get while the dragon is trying to get him. You could put an object in the middle of the screen that they could run around so that they could evade each other. There's lots of ways you can make this game harder, easier, or even more fun. So I will leave you to that and let you try to decide how to make this game different. Once you've created it, make sure you share it so I can see it and we can show the class, or at least some of your friends, how you made this game especially interesting for you. Maybe you need a title, maybe you could put in some more variables. So good luck, and please let me know if you have any questions.